Professor Ken Ife, it would be very good to have you back in the conversation. I'm sure you can hear me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was talking about a professor, that a P in professor means patience. That you need a lot of patience to be a professor.
Mm.
We thank you for your patience tonight. Thank you very much. We've got a whole lot of disruptions, but of course the show must always go on. We talk about the trade war dominating the spring meetings of the World Bank and the IMF today in Washington. But aside from trade and tariff, which is front and forward to everyone, President Trump is also talking about whether he will be able to sack the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell before his tenure ends in 6 months' time. They have the issues of immigrants. They have the war in Ukraine, the Middle East, and so on. How tough do you think these discussions will be in Washington, in particular for the World Bank and the IMF, that many countries in the world, including Africa, are looking forward to see provide some direction from the turmoil and the uncertainties that we have around us?
Well, let me explain something, Boston. Trump spent 4 years preparing for 4 wars. 4. In this order of immediacy. 1 is Third World War. He's shying away from that, and he has very good reason to do so. So he had to run to Russia. 2nd is the global trade war, which he has kicked off. But there's a 3rd one, which is China, US-China economic war. And then there's the 4th one, which is the currency war. He's coming. The thing is that many leaders gathered in IMF, World Bank, don't even know where they stand in the entire continuum of global conflicts this man is kicking off. They don't know. So it's all speculative. And I have to tell you that wherever you stand, what he's doing is impacting fiscal policy, and to a very, very large extent, monetary policy, then trade policy, investment policy, industrial policy. And then it has repercussions for employment policies, and then, of course, for entire macroeconomic policy mix. Everything is up for grabs, and people don't know. There are some countries that are trying to make things happen by fighting back, like Canada, like China, like Japan now, that melted away 1.7 trillion treasury. But there are some, most of them don't even know what is happening. And then there are some that, they're watching things happen, and some don't even know what is happening. So you go to the meeting, people are perplexed. They don't know. The majority there in that meeting are just watching things happen, and then some don't know what has happened. So it's an evolving story. You can't, even World Bank, IMF doesn't even know what to predict. What are you going to predict because of the state of flux? But let's take it one by one. Nigerian delegation are happy because they have 4 reports that are so positive, that are saying good things about macroeconomic management, saying good things about the resilience that we are building, praising the government for removing the fuel subsidy. And then these reports are 1, IMF Article 4 report, which usually comes every 6 months. And that's the first one since Trump has come in, and that's the first one this year. So that was a good one that says, yeah, you've been doing good things, ticking all the boxes, and then still warning us that there are storms coming, and we should better be prepared for those. Then you have the JP Morgan. The JP Morgan report that actually upgraded Nigeria's economic outlook to stable, and very good things that he has to say, but also warned that the balance of payment crisis is not over. But we've done well because we moved from subsidy, for fuel subsidy, where it was costing us over $4.5 billion straight away as we flipped it to balance of payment surplus. But they are saying that JP Morgan said that balance of payment surplus is at risk. Then, of course, you have the Fitch rating. The Fitch rating is also quite good because they've just raised our foreign currency issue to positive, and that to B. So that says, yes, we're making substantive progress, and there's confidence to is a confidence booster for the President Tinubu administration. So you can see that the team, in fact, even the PwC, the Pricewaterhouse Coopers, also had their own outlook, their macroeconomic outlook, which also looked at all the macroeconomic parameters and then concluded that, you know, if immigration is going to hit us, you know, as it's going to hit others, so we are going to have something to worry about. And then, of course, there will be more trade deficits because of obvious reasons. But many countries are different pages when it comes to what the trade deficit could mean to them. Nigeria hasn't even started, we haven't even seen the 14% coming, but we're already taking the hit because we have an import-dependent economy. So whatever is happening elsewhere is going to affect Nigeria, without a doubt. So that's why it's going to be double whammy to countries like Nigeria.
Professor Ken, Ife, just hanging in there for us for a few more minutes, and let's look a very quick break. We'll come back. Of course, we've got Nkechi Nana sending in a report from Washington, D.C. ahead of some of the meetings and what the outlook is on some of the big discussions. It's about jobs, for example. That's going to be on top of the agenda tomorrow, Tuesday. One of the big events that we're looking at. How do we create jobs for billions of youths and others around the world is part of what's contained in Nkechi Nana's report. So let's give you that when we return in just a moment. So the world economy is at crossroads, fragmented, uncertain, and facing rising tariffs, inflation, and political shifts. Now from Washington, D.C., the world's top financial minds have gathered for the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank spring meetings, looking to chart a path through the turbulence. Rice correspondent Nkechi Nana is on the ground in Washington with this report on the tough talk, the policy pivots, and the promises of resilience that are setting the tone for the first day of the week-long meetings. Take a listen.
The mood is somber here in Washington, D.C., as global financial leaders gather under the darkening economic skies. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank spring meetings have kicked off, not with a bang, but with the groan of a world economy under pressure. The IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, is urging nations to start adjusting to a fragmented economic future, one stitched together by regional partnerships and economic realism.
My call is, rather than wishing this away, wishing that the world turns back to where it was, we work hard to make the best out of economic relations. But we are in a multipolar world. We are no more in a world where rules can be easily settled.
Next on the agenda, the IMF will unveil its much-anticipated World Economic Outlook. The expectations, growth projections pared back, uncertainty turned up. And the culprit? A cocktail of US-led tariffs, market volatility, and rising geopolitical risk. With President Donald Trump back in the White House, trade tensions are rattling markets like it's 2018 all over again.
Trade tensions are like a pot that was bubbling for a long time and is now boiling over. To a large extent, what we see is the result of an erosion of trust. Trust in the international system and trust between countries.
And for Nigeria, still reeling from tough law reforms under President Bola Tinubu. The IMF admits the government's economic recalibration, scrapping fuel subsidies, floating the naira, was necessary. But the gains, not yet trickling down to everyday Nigerians. Meanwhile, the World Bank is pushing its new mandate with urgency, and that's jobs. With 1 billion young people entering the workforce in emerging markets, job creation is survival.
And the idea is build a bank that delivers what is demanded, jobs, because jobs is the best way to drive a nail in the coffin of poverty.
So, here's the global dilemma laid bare in DC. Economic fragmentation is the new normal, and the race is on. Not just for growth, but for resilience, relevance, and reinvention. From Lagos to London, Nairobi to New Delhi, Brasilia to Beijing, Cairo to Jakarta, the stakes are high and the margin for error razor thin. From the IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, Nkechi Nana, Arise News.
That's Nkechi Nana there, just in front of the World Bank IMF headquarters in Washington, D.C., reporting earlier today on the first day of the summit. Let's get back and begin to take a final lap with Professor Ken Ife, Professor of Development Economics in Abuja Studios. Professor, it's been a very tough evening. We appreciate your sticking with us. Let's just take about one or two questions to wrap up. The IMF report, and part of what Nkechi touched on, was the 2025 budget. The IMF advised that the subsidies from the gains from the subsidies should be plowed into the budget. Do you agree with that? Professor, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I could hear you at this end, Professor.
Volume, please? Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah, Professor, but my question has to do with the IMF advised that the 2025 budget should, the gains that we make from food subsidy, we should plow it into the budget for this year. Do you agree with that?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But the thing is that the storm is coming. When you have oil price hovering around $60, projection on revenue on production 1.4, 1.45. So that's a drop from 2 million barrels a day, drop from $75 a day. Benchmark is going to impact the budget. So that we must go straight away to review the budget because we already exceeded by far the deficit to GDP ratio. So that's going to, so many things will have to be rolled back from that budget. And then of course, you are going to a drop, significant drop in dollar expected revenue. Don't forget, because all that impact is going to be on dollar, and you've already committed, we securitized a large portion of our crude for 5 years to Afro-Exim Bank, and then the coming down of the price of crude means it's closer to the $30 per barrel extraction cost. So it's compressing. So we're going to have to be looking for dollar somewhere. Obviously, the first port of call is the central bank, and that means dipping into the reserves, which are already coming down low. And then also you may have to go out back to the market to look for foreign denominated bonds, of course, Euro bonds sort of thing, to be able to service the IMF says $5.2 billion servicing requirements. So we're going to have to find that money. So it's not going to be easy either way. But we have, the jury is out on other things that could impact our deficit. For example, when will the 14% kick in? And then how much vulnerability can we manage in terms of being an import-dependent economy? Prices are rising. They will have a knock-on effect on inflation. And then also there's going to have the effect on balance of payment, which IMF says may dry up. And so there are so many questions to be answered. Yeah. And I don't think we're anywhere near answering these questions yet because of the flux at the moment. Not even the World Bank or IMF can actually project with any degree of certainty what is going to happen in the next 6 months. Yes. So it's an evolving drama, and they will just have to watch how it plays out.
Yeah, Professor, one of the things that has been in the news over the last few days, you mentioned at the onset, despite the network problem, it's about the JP Morgan, the Fitch ratings, and the IMF Article 4. But part of what the IMF stated was that the gains of the reforms of since 2023 have yet to benefit all Nigerians because poverty and food insecurity remain high. So when Nigerians look at this report and say, well, it looks like we are doing well on the economic, on the external front, but locally, it's showing that these reforms haven't really benefited most Nigerians. All Nigerians, as the report put it, the IMF.
No, but, yeah, it takes a bit of, there's a lag between when things are done and when they actually hit the ground and when you're able to measure them.
We're talking about 2 years here,
funding
Professor. We're talking about 2 years here. 2 years. June 2023. We're almost 2 years. It's going to be 2 years in 2 months.
Yeah. When was the central bank governor in place? When did the central bank action started taking effect? It was only a year ago, within a year, just last year. So, it's unraveling. And we just hope that what is going to stop the storm brewing up is not going to even reverse the gains that we have. And I have to tell you, there's budget, people are looking for money. Capital spends are slow in coming because a lot of money is also heading out to palliatives. A lot of money is going on to supply 1.2 million fertilizers, a ton of fertilizer. So there are a lot going on there. But as I said, it takes time for you to see that full impact and capture it in metrics. But there are things that are happening, quite a lot of things. About 2,000, I went with the Minister for Agriculture to see 2,000 tractors that have been bought. They were not given as free. They're not free to Nigeria. And then I also was aware that they spent from 400,000 tons of fertilizer to 1.2 million tons of fertilizer, over 200 billion naira. That is expenditure, and that all going into the ground. So I'm not making excuses, but I'm saying that there is progress that in that direction, but there is a lag that you need to be aware of, and it could get better. Obviously, it could get better. I appreciate what Central Bank, World Bank had to say. IMF, even the PricewaterhouseCoopers, they also said their own Fitch rating. They're all on the same thing, praising government for the courage to take the action that they took. Yes. But then said, look, how soon can these benefits of fuel removal come down? But we saw them now. Dangote has had 4 occasions when he reduced the fuel prices, 4 times, now going to the 5th one. And we had a Christmas where nobody complained. There was no queue, no the hoarding of petrol. Price was so the same all over the country. Nobody talks about that. But there are things that could get better over time.
Okay, so let me throw in the PwC report that you mentioned. That report on economic outlook on Nigeria. What do you make of the 3 scenarios and on how external policy shocks will impact key economic variables for Nigeria in the 2025 period? We have the status quo scenario, you have the targeted scenario and the favorable scenario.
Yeah, they painted those 3 pictures, and then obviously you can't even put your hand on any of them because you still haven't seen the crystallization of the global trade crisis. I say, for example, we have a 14% on us. What can we do about it? Virtually little, because we are part of ECOWAS Common External Tariff. So we have to act as a bloc because it is between us, ECOWAS, and the rest of the world. So you cannot single out America. What Nigeria could do is to use the instrument we have, which is called levy instrument. If you want to target specific American goods, you bump up the duty using the levy instrument. You cannot, because we're already on 5 bans in the ECOWAS Common External Tariff. Okay. But before even waiting for that to come, we have trade deficit. We also have import dependency syndrome. We are taking our hit already from there. We haven't even come into what we have business we have with Trump.
Very, very interesting. That's quite a whole lot to digest. It's the start of the week, Professor Ken Ife, so we're going to be talking to you through the rest of the week. We're going to get to the internet.